Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're diving deep into, the principles of personal and interpersonal effectiveness
Okay.
with Stephen Covey's The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
All right.
You shared an excerpt from this book with us,
Yeah.
so let's explore those key insights together
Sounds good.
and hopefully create a roadmap
Okay.
for applying them to your life.
Perfect.
One thing that really struck me about Covey's approach, at least initially,
Yeah.
is this idea that effectiveness isn't just about churning out results, but it's about nurturing the source of those results.
He uses this analogy of the goose that lays the golden eggs.
Yeah.
You can't just focus on getting those golden eggs, right?
Yeah.
You need to take care of the goose itself.
Of course.
If you want a sustainable source of those valuable eggs.
Yeah, it makes you wonder if we sometimes get so caught up in the doing that we forget about the being.
Absolutely.
Right. Covey calls for a paradigm shift to address that.
Yes.
But what exactly does that mean? And how do we actually make that shift happen?
Well, a paradigm shift is essentially a change in how we see the world.
Okay.
It's like that famous optical illusion, you know, the one with the young woman and the old woman.
Yes.
Same image.
Right.
But depending on your perspective, you see something completely different.
Totally.
And Covey says that lasting change comes from working on our paradigms.
Oh, okay.
So those are the root assumptions that shape our perceptions.
So instead of just trying to change our behavior,
Right.
we need to examine the underlying beliefs and assumptions that drive that behavior.
Yeah.
It reminds me of the difference between treating the symptoms and addressing the root cause
100%.
of a problem.
And that leads us to Covey's distinction between the character ethic and the personality ethic.
Okay.
He argues that true effectiveness is grounded in the character ethic,
Okay.
which focuses on timeless principles like integrity, fairness, and honesty.
Gotcha. It sounds like the character ethic is about developing those inner qualities that make us truly effective,
Yeah.
while the personality ethic might be more focused on superficial techniques or quick fixes.
Right.
Would you say that's accurate?
Yeah, I think so.
Hmm.
Think about someone who might be charming and charismatic on the surface, but lacks integrity.
Right.
They might be able to manipulate people,
Okay.
but eventually their true character will be revealed.
Right.
And their effectiveness will suffer.
Covey has a great anecdote about this in the book.
Yes.
Where he tries to force his daughter
Yeah.
to share her toys with other children,
Right.
which is a very classic
Yeah,
personality ethic approach.
for sure.
But he realized it wasn't truly effective because
Yeah.
it didn't address her underlying motivation.
Right.
It didn't teach her the value of generosity.
Exactly. Forcing her to share
Right.
didn't actually teach her anything. And in fact,
Yeah.
it might have made her resent
Yeah.
the whole idea.
It makes me think about how often we focus on trying to change people's behavior
Yes.
without addressing the underlying beliefs or emotions
Absolutely.
that are driving that behavior.
And that brings us to the heart of Covey's work,
Okay.
the 7 habits.
Okay.
These habits offer a framework for moving from dependence to independence,
Okay.
and finally to interdependence.
So it's not just about individual achievement, but
Yeah.
also about the ability to build
Yeah.
strong collaborative relationships.
Absolutely.
And those relationships are essential for creating win-win solutions
For sure.
and achieving true synergy.
Yeah, but before we can even begin to think about interdependence,
All right.
we need to develop a strong sense of independence.
Gotcha.
That's where the first 3 habits come in.
Okay, let's break it down.
Okay.
What's the first step on this journey towards effectiveness?
Habit 1 is be proactive.
Okay.
Covey argues that we have the power to choose our responses, even in challenging situations.
Yeah.
We're not just victims of circumstance.
So instead of reacting to whatever life throws at us,
Right.
we can consciously choose how we respond.
Exactly. It's about recognizing
Yeah.
that we have a circle of influence,
Okay.
things we can control,
Gotcha.
and a circle of concern,
Okay.
things we can't control.
Uh-huh.
The key is to focus our energy on expanding
Okay.
our circle of influence
Gotcha.
and not wasting time worrying about things we can't change.
This is where it gets interesting because sometimes it's hard to distinguish between what we can and can't control.
Yeah.
How do we determine which circle a particular challenge falls into?
That's where some self-reflection comes in.
Okay.
Ask yourself,
Yeah.
can I directly influence this situation?
Okay.
If the answer is yes, then it falls within your circle of influence.
Yeah.
If not,
Yeah.
then it's likely in your circle of concern.
So if I'm feeling stressed about a deadline at work,
Okay.
I can't control the deadline itself,
Right.
but I can control how I manage my time. And prioritize my tasks.
Exactly.
That would be shifting my focus
Yeah.
to my circle of influence.
Precisely. And by doing that,
Yeah.
you're taking ownership of the situation.
Yeah. Okay.
And empowering yourself to take action.
Right.
Which is the essence of being proactive.
That makes sense.
Good.
So once we've embraced this proactive mindset,
Yeah.
what's the next step in developing our independence?
Habit 2 is begin with the end in mind.
Okay.
This habit emphasizes the importance of defining your mission and values,
Okay.
and then living your life in alignment with those principles.
It's like having a roadmap
Yes.
that guides your decisions and actions.
Exactly. Covey argues that everything is created twice.
Oh, interesting.
First in the mind,
Okay.
then in the physical world.
Gotcha.
So by defining your goals and values up front,
Yeah.
you're essentially creating a blueprint for your life.
This makes me think about those times when I feel like I'm just drifting through life,
Yeah.
reacting to whatever comes up
Right.
without a clear sense of direction.
That's where having a personal mission statement can be so powerful.
Okay.
It gives you a sense of purpose and direction,
Uh-huh.
even when things get tough.
So if I'm feeling lost or unfulfilled,
Yeah.
taking some time to reflect on my core values and what I want to achieve in life
Yes.
could help me get back on track.
Absolutely. It's about consciously designing your life
Okay.
rather than letting it happen to you.
That leads us to habit 3,
Yes.
which seems like a natural progression from habit 2.
Habit 3 is put first things first.
Okay.
And it's all about effective time management
Okay.
and prioritizing tasks based on importance
Okay.
rather than urgency.
So it's about making sure that we're not just constantly reacting to crises,
Yes.
but also making time for
yeah.
those activities that are truly important,
Yes.
even if they're not urgent.
Exactly. Covey uses the time management matrix to illustrate this concept.
Okay.
He talks about focusing on quadrant 2 activities,
Mhm.
which are important but not urgent.
Okay.
These are the activities that often get neglected,
Right.
but they have the biggest long-term impact on our lives.
It's like investing in your health,
Yes.
relationships,
Yes.
or personal growth.
Exactly.
Those things might not feel urgent on a daily basis,
Right.
but they're essential for a fulfilling and meaningful life.
Right. And by prioritizing these quadrant 2 activities,
Yeah.
you're essentially investing in the goose that lays the golden eggs.
Uh-huh.
You're nurturing your capacity to produce those valuable results in the long run.
This resonates with me because I know I'm often guilty of getting caught up in the urgency of the
Yeah.
day-to-day,
For sure.
putting out fires,
Yeah.
responding to emails,
Yeah.
and then feeling like I don't have time for the things that really matter.
It's a common struggle, but Covey's framework
Yeah.
provides a powerful tool for breaking free from that cycle of reactivity
Okay.
and creating a life that's aligned with our values and goals.
Yeah. So we've moved from dependence to independence
Right.
with these first 3 habits.
Yes.
We've learned to be proactive,
Yeah.
to define our mission,
Yes.
and to prioritize our time effectively.
Exactly.
But what about the transition to interdependence?
Okay.
What are the key principles that govern effective relationships?
Well, that's where the next 3 habits come in.
Okay.
Habits 4, 5, and 6.
Okay.
These habits focus on building
Okay.
strong win-win relationships
Okay.
that are based on mutual respect, understanding, and cooperation.
Okay. Let's start with habit 4.
Okay.
What does it mean to think win-win?
It means approaching every interaction with the goal of creating a mutually beneficial outcome.
Okay.
It's about moving away from
Okay.
that ingrained win-lose mentality
Right.
that's so prevalent in our society.
So instead of seeing every interaction as a competition,
Yeah.
where one person has to win and the other has to lose,
Right.
we look for solutions where everyone benefits.
Exactly. Covey argues that true abundance comes from collaboration and synergy.
Okay.
When we work together,
Yeah.
we could achieve far more than we could ever accomplish alone.
That sounds idealistic.
Sure.
But is it really possible to achieve win-win solutions in
Well-
every situation? What if you have conflicting interests or goals?
It's not always easy,
Yeah.
but it's always worth striving for.
Okay.
The key is to shift our paradigm from competition to cooperation, to see the other person not as an adversary,
Yeah.
but as a potential partner.
So it's about recognizing that we're all in this together
Yes.
and that by working together,
Yeah,
we can create a better outcome for everyone.
precisely. And that brings us to habit 5,
Okay.
which is arguably the most important habit
Yeah.
for building strong, effective relationships.
Okay. Which is?
Seek first to understand, then to be understood.
Okay.
Covey argues that most people listen with the intent to reply, not to understand. They're so focused on getting their own point across
Okay.
that they don't take the time to truly listen to what the other person is saying.
So it's about putting aside our own agenda.
Yes.
And really focusing on what the other person's trying to communicate.
Exactly. Covey advocates for a deeper level of listening
Okay.
that involves not just hearing the words,
Right.
but also trying to understand the emotions and the underlying needs
Okay.
behind those words.
It reminds me of that saying, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
It's about creating a space where the other person feels heard, understood, and valued.
And that's essential for building trust and connection,
Absolutely.
which are the foundations of any strong relationship.
When people feel understood,
Yeah.
they're more likely to open up, to share their perspectives,
Okay.
and to work collaboratively to find solutions that benefit everyone.
Covey shares a powerful story in the book about a father who was struggling to connect with his son.
Yeah?
The son was frustrated and withdrawn.
Okay.
And the father kept trying to give him advice and solutions.
Right.
But it wasn't until the father truly listened with empathy
Yes.
that the son started to open up and share what was really going on.
It's a classic example of how empathic listening can transform a relationship.
Yeah.
By simply listening without judgment or interruption.
Right.
The father created a safe space for his son to express himself
Okay.
and feel heard.
It makes me think about how often we jump in with solutions
For sure.
before we've even taken the time to understand the problem.
100%.
We're so eager to fix things that we forget to listen.
And that can actually make things worse when
Well,
people feel like they're not being heard.
yeah.
They're less likely to cooperate or to be receptive to our ideas.
So it's about putting aside our own agenda,
Yes.
our own need to be right or to have all the answers, and simply focusing on understanding the other person's perspective.
That's the essence of habit 5.
Okay.
And it's the foundation for habit 6,
Okay.
which is all about creating synergy.
What does Covey mean by synergy?
He describes synergy as the highest activity of life.
Okay.
It's about achieving results that are greater than the sum of their parts. It's about valuing differences,
Okay.
fostering creative cooperation,
Gotcha.
and coming up with solutions.
Yeah.
That wouldn't have been possible if we had worked alone.
So it's not just about teamwork,
Right.
but about creating something truly innovative and transformative.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that we all have different strengths and weaknesses,
Uh-huh.
and that by working together,
Yeah.
we can leverage those differences
Okay.
to create something truly extraordinary.
He gives an inspiring example of a classroom where the students and teacher
Yeah.
co-create a learning experience that's far more engaging and effective
Right.
than anything the teacher could have come up with on his own.
It's a beautiful example of what's possible when we embrace the power of synergy.
So we've covered 6 habits so far.
We have.
We've learned to be proactive,
Yes.
to begin with the end in mind,
Uh-huh.
to put first things first,
Right.
to think win-win,
Yes.
to seek first to understand and to synergize.
Correct.
What's the final habit that brings it all together?
Habit 7 is sharpen the saw.
Okay.
This habit is all about renewing ourselves
Okay.
in all 4 dimensions of our being.
Okay.
Physical,
Uh-huh.
spiritual,
Okay.
mental,
That's-
and social emotional.
It seems like it goes back to that idea of nurturing the goose that lays the golden eggs.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that we can't be truly effective
Right.
if we're not taking care of ourselves.
So it's not selfish to prioritize our own well-being. It's actually essential
Absolutely.
for our overall effectiveness.
Covey argues that self-renewal is an investment, not an expense.
Okay.
When we take care of ourselves.
Yeah.
We have more energy, focus, and creativity to give to our work and our relationships.
Okay, let's dive into each of these dimensions of renewal.
Okay.
What does Covey mean by physical renewal?
It's about taking care of our bodies
Uh-huh.
through exercise, nutrition, and sleep.
Okay.
Covey shares an anecdote about learning from a weightlifting friend.
Uh,
That real progress comes from pushing ourselves to the limit.
yeah.
It's about breaking down muscle fibers so they can rebuild stronger.
So it's not just about going for a leisurely walk.
Right.
It's about challenging ourselves physically
Yes.
to create real growth and strength.
Right, and that same principle
Okay.
applies to the other dimensions of renewal as well.
What about spiritual renewal?
Okay.
Does that have to be religious?
Not necessarily. Covey defines spiritual renewal as connecting with our core values
Okay.
and finding sources of inspiration.
Gotcha.
It could involve spending time in nature, meditating, reading inspiring literature,
Okay.
or engaging in any activity that nourishes our souls.
Covey has this great anecdote about a doctor who gives his patients prescriptions for spiritual renewal.
Yes.
It's not about medication, it's about engaging in activities
Right.
that bring joy, peace, and meaning to their lives.
He suggests things like going back to a childhood happy place,
Ah,
or writing your worries in the sand and letting the waves wash them away.
that's nice.
It's about finding ways to reconnect with that inner sense of peace and wholeness.
What about mental renewal? How do we sharpen our minds?
It's about engaging in activities that challenge us intellectually
Uh-huh.
and help us to expand our knowledge and understanding.
Okay.
It could involve reading books, taking courses, attending lectures, or
Okay.
having stimulating conversations with people who have different perspectives.
So it's about keeping our minds active and engaged,
Exactly.
always learning and growing.
And finally, there's social emotional renewal.
Okay.
What do you think that involves?
I imagine it's about nurturing our relationships with others and finding ways to connect with people who support and inspire us.
You're exactly right.
Okay.
It's about spending quality time with loved ones,
Mm.
building meaningful connections with colleagues,
Okay.
and contributing to our communities.
It's about recognizing that we're not meant to go through life alone.
Right.
We need those social connections to thrive.
And those connections also provide opportunities for us to practice
Okay.
the other 6 habits.
Okay.
We can be proactive in our relationships,
Yeah.
seek to understand others,
Okay.
and work collaboratively to create win-win solutions.
It seems like all 7 habits are interconnected and support each other.
That's a great observation.
Yeah.
And it brings us back to Covey's emphasis on principle-centered living.
What does he mean by that?
He argues that true effectiveness and happiness flow from aligning our lives with timeless principles,
Okay.
such as fairness, integrity, honesty, and human dignity.
So it's about creating an internal compass that guides our actions and decisions.
Exactly. When we live by principles,
Yeah.
we're less likely to be swayed by external factors,
Okay.
such as peer pressure, societal expectations, or fleeting emotions.
Gotcha.
We have a solid foundation to stand on,
Uh-huh.
even in the face of adversity.
It makes me think about those times when I've made decisions that I later regretted
Yeah.
because I was acting out of fear or insecurity
Right.
or a desire to please others.
Those are the times when it's so important to have a strong set of principles to guide us,
Right.
when we know what we stand for.
Yeah.
It's easier to make decisions that are aligned with our values,
Uh-huh.
even when it's difficult.
Covey shares a powerful story about Anwar Sadat,
Yes.
former president of Egypt,
Yes.
who had been deeply entrenched in a hatred for Israel.
He vowed never to shake the hand
Right.
of an Israeli leader.
He experienced a profound paradigm shift
He did.
when he realized that clinging to that hatred was preventing him from achieving his goals.
Yeah. And he decided to visit Israel, a decision that ultimately led to a peace treaty
Okay.
and transformed the political landscape of the Middle East.
It's a remarkable example of how a principle-centered approach can lead to extraordinary results.
Absolutely.
He realized that peace was a higher principle
Yes.
than his own personal resentment.
Right. He was willing to challenge his own deeply ingrained paradigms and to act in accordance with his conscience, even though it was politically risky.
He also talks about the importance of identifying our center,
Yeah.
the core from which we approach life.
It's a very powerful concept.
What are some examples of different centers?
Well, he describes a variety of centers, such as spouse-centeredness, family-centeredness, money-centeredness, work-centeredness,
Okay.
and even enemy-centeredness.
So it's about becoming aware of our own default settings,
Yes,
the deeply ingrained paradigms that shape our perceptions and behaviors.
exactly. Once we're aware of our center,
Yeah.
we can choose to shift it to something more stable and enduring. Covey argues that a principle-centered life is the most effective and fulfilling because it's based on something larger than ourselves,
Okay.
something that transcends the fleeting circumstances of our lives.
This resonates with me because I've definitely gone through phases where my center has shifted,
Yeah.
depending on what's going on in my life.
Sure.
Sometimes it's my work.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's my relationships. Sometimes it's even my anxieties or fears.
It's a natural part of the human experience.
Yeah.
But by becoming aware of these shifts and consciously choosing to center ourselves on timeless principles,
Okay.
we can create a more stable and fulfilling life.
It sounds like living a principle-centered life is a continual process of growth and self-discovery.
Absolutely. Covey emphasizes that personal effectiveness is not a destination, but a journey.
Okay.
It's about continuously learning, growing, and aligning our lives with those timeless principles that bring true fulfillment and lasting happiness.
Yeah. He shares a moving story about his own journey of self-discovery with his wife, Sandra.
Yes.
They took a year-long sabbatical to delve into their own inner worlds and to create a deeper level of understanding and connection in their marriage.
What's fascinating is that they developed 2 ground rules for their conversations.
Okay.
No probing.
Interesting.
And always starting where we left off.
That sounds intriguing.
It is.
What was the purpose of those rules?
They realized that true intimacy requires vulnerability and a willingness to explore those deep, often hidden parts of ourselves.
Okay.
The no probing rule prevented them from pushing each other too hard.
Gotcha.
Or trying to force the other person to reveal something they weren't ready to share.
So they were creating a safe space for genuine sharing and connection, free from judgment
Exactly.
or defensiveness.
And the always starting where we left off rule ensured that they didn't brush difficult conversations under the rug.
Right.
They committed to working through their challenges,
Okay.
even if it took time and patience.
It seems like their journey of self-discovery was a powerful catalyst for growth
And
transformation in their relationship.
absolutely. It highlights the transformative power of habit 5.
Okay.
Seek first to understand, then to be understood. By creating a space for genuine empathy and vulnerability, they were able to break through those old patterns of defensiveness and judgment that can sabotage even the strongest relationships.
And that connection between their personal growth
Yeah,
and the strengthening of their relationship seems to be a key takeaway from Covey's work.
for sure.
He emphasized that the 7 habits are not just a set of techniques,
Right.
but a holistic framework for living a principle-centered life.
Exactly.
It's about becoming more self-aware, defining our mission and values, and then aligning our actions and relationships with those core principles.
Right. And he challenges us to move beyond a life of reactivity
Okay.
and to embrace our proactive nature. He reminds us that we have the power to choose our responses, to shape our destinies, and to create a life of meaning and purpose.
He also challenges us to examine our paradigms, to consider how we see the world and how those perceptions might be limiting us.
Right. He encourages us to be open to new possibilities, to embrace differences, and to seek synergistic solutions that benefit everyone involved.
So what does this all mean for you, listening in?
That's a great question.
Covey challenges us to consider how we can use the space between stimulus and response to make proactive choices.
What one small step can you take today to become more aligned with your deepest values and move toward a more effective and fulfilling life?
We'll continue exploring those questions as we dive deeper into the specific habits and their applications in the next part of our deep dive.
That's good.
Stay tuned.
I'll be here. It's fascinating how Covey emphasizes that small, consistent changes can lead to significant long-term results.
Yeah.
It's not about trying to overhaul your entire life overnight, but about identifying 1 or 2 key areas where you can start applying these principles.
He talks about the power of private victories. Those small wins we achieve in our personal lives. That ultimately lead to public victories in our interactions with others.
It's like building a strong foundation. You can't expect to have a successful and fulfilling public life if you haven't taken the time to cultivate those inner qualities that Covey talks about.
So it's a reminder that real change starts from within.
Absolutely.
And that leads us back to those first 3 habits. Those foundational principles for building independence.
Right. Be proactive. Begin with the end in mind. And put first things first. These habits provide a framework for taking ownership of our lives, defining our goals, and managing our time effectively.
I've been thinking a lot about the circle of influence concept.
Yes.
It's so easy to get caught up in worrying about things that are outside of my control.
Yeah.
And it just drains my energy and makes me feel helpless.
It's a common trap.
Yeah.
But Covey's framework provides a powerful antidote. By focusing on what we can control, we empower ourselves to take action and create positive change.
It's about shifting our focus from why is this happening to me to what can I do about it?
Exactly. And that shift in perspective can be incredibly liberating.
Right.
Instead of feeling like a victim of circumstance, we become active agents in shaping our own destinies.
Do you have any tips for expanding our circle of influence? It feels like some things are so clearly outside of our control, like the weather or the traffic.
Well, while we can't directly control those external factors, we can control how we respond to them.
Okay.
For example, instead of getting frustrated by traffic, you could use that time to listen to a podcast.
Okay.
Learn a new language.
Right.
Or simply practice mindfulness.
It's about finding those little pockets of opportunity within the constraints of our daily lives.
Exactly. And often, by focusing on what we can control, we indirectly influence those things that seem outside of our reach.
Okay.
For example, if you consistently prioritize exercise and healthy eating, you'll likely have more energy and stamina.
Yeah.
Which can improve your mood and your overall ability to handle stress.
Okay.
Those positive changes can then ripple outward, influencing your relationships and your work life.
It's like those concentric circles.
Yes.
As our inner circle of influence expands, it naturally impacts the outer circles of our lives.
Precisely. And that brings us to habit 2.
Okay.
Begin with the end in mind.
Right.
Covey argues that we should approach life with a clear vision of our desired outcome.
Okay.
It's about defining our goals and values. And making choices that are aligned with those principles.
It's like having a destination in mind before you start a journey.
Exactly.
Without a clear destination, you're likely to wander aimlessly and end up somewhere you didn't intend to go.
That's a great analogy.
Thanks.
And just as a map helps you to navigate a physical journey, a personal mission statement can help you to navigate the journey of life.
But how do we actually go about creating a compelling personal mission statement? Well, it feels like a daunting task.
Covey suggests starting by reflecting on your core values.
Okay.
What's truly important to you?
Right.
What do you want to stand for?
Yeah.
What kind of legacy do you want to leave behind?
It's about identifying those guiding principles that will shape our decisions and actions.
Exactly.
Okay.
Once you have a clear understanding of your values, you can start to think about your goals.
Okay.
What do you want to achieve in your life? What kind of impact do you want to make on the world?
It sounds like a process of introspection and self-discovery.
It is, and it's an ongoing process.
Okay.
Your mission statement isn't something you create once and then forget about.
Right.
It's something you revisit and refine as you grow and evolve.
So it's a living document.
Yes.
A compass that guides us on our journey.
Precisely. And once you have that compass, you can start to make choices that are aligned with your values and goals.
Right.
That's where habit 3, put first things first, comes in.
This habit is all about effective time management.
It is.
Right.
Right. It's about prioritizing tasks based on importance rather than urgency.
So it's about making sure that we're not just constantly reacting to crises.
Exactly.
But also making time for those activities that are truly important, even if they're not urgent.
Exactly. Key uses the time management matrix to illustrate this concept.
Yes.
He talks about focusing on quadrant 2 activities, which are important but not urgent. These are the activities that often get neglected. But they have the biggest long-term impact on our lives.
It's like investing in your health, your relationships, or personal growth.
Exactly.
Those things might not feel urgent on a daily basis. But they're essential for a fulfilling and meaningful life.
Right. And by prioritizing these quadrant 2 activities, you're essentially investing in the goose that lays the golden eggs. You're nurturing your capacity to produce those valuable results in the long run.
This resonates with me because I know I'm often guilty of getting caught up in the urgency of the day-to-day, putting out fires, responding to emails.
It's a common struggle. But Covey's framework provides a powerful tool for breaking free from that cycle of reactivity and creating a life that's aligned with our value and goals.
So we've moved from dependence to independence with these first 3 habits.
Yes.
We've learned to be proactive, to define our mission, and to prioritize our time effectively. But what about the transition to interdependence? What are the key principles that govern effective relationships?
Well, that's where the next 3 habits come in. Habits 4, 5, and 6. These habits focus on building strong win-win relationships that are based on mutual respect, understanding, and cooperation.
They seem particularly relevant in today's world.
They do.
Where so much emphasis is placed on individual achievement and competition.
Covey argues that true success is not a zero-sum game.
Okay.
There's enough abundance for everyone.
Right.
And when we work together cooperatively, we can achieve far more than we could ever accomplish alone.
It's about shifting our mindset from me versus you to we.
Exactly. And that shift starts with habit 4.
Okay.
Think win-win.
Right.
It's about approaching every interaction with the goal of creating a mutually beneficial outcome.
But how do we actually put that into practice?
Right.
It's easy to say win-win, but what if the other person is only interested in winning at your expense?
It's not always easy.
Right.
But it's always worth striving for.
Okay.
Covey suggests starting by clearly defining your desired outcome.
Okay.
And then exploring the other person's needs and interests.
So it's about open communication.
Yes.
And willingness to compromise.
Right. But compromise doesn't mean sacrificing your own needs or values.
Right.
It means finding creative solutions that meet both parties' needs.
Can you give an example?
Let's say you're working on a project with a colleague.
Okay.
And you have different ideas about how to approach it.
Yeah.
Instead of digging in your heels and trying to force your way.
Right.
You could take the time to truly understand your colleague's perspective.
Okay.
And to explore ways to integrate both of your ideas into a solution that's even better than either of you could have come up with on your own.
So it's about seeing conflict as an opportunity for creativity and innovation.
Exactly. And it's about approaching every interaction with a spirit of collaboration and mutual respect.
That reminds me of habit 5.
Yes.
Seek first to understand, then to be understood. It seems like those two habits go hand in hand.
They do.
Right.
You can't create a win-win solution if you don't first understand the other person's perspective.
So it's about putting aside our own agenda.
Yes.
And really focusing on what the other person is trying to communicate.
Exactly. Covey advocates for a deeper level of listening.
Right.
That involves not just hearing the words, but also trying to understand the emotions and the underlying needs behind those words.
It's about going beyond the superficial level of communication.
Right.
And really connecting with the other person on a deeper level.
Right. And that requires empathy.
Okay.
The ability to see the world from another person's perspective.
Covey has a great analogy for this.
He does.
He says that most people listen with the intent to reply, not to understand. They're so busy formulating their own response, they're not really present to what the other person is saying.
It's like we're playing a game of tennis. Each of us waiting for our turn to hit the ball.
Right.
Instead of engaging in a genuine dialogue.
So how do we shift from that reactive mode of listening to a more empathic understanding mode?
Covey suggests practicing what he calls empathic listening.
Okay.
This involves 4 stages.
Okay.
Mimicking content.
Okay.
Rephrasing content. Reflecting feeling.
Okay.
And rephrasing content and reflecting feeling.
Can you break that down for us?
Sure. The first stage, mimicking content, is simply repeating back what the other person has said.
Right.
This shows that you're paying attention and that you're trying to understand.
So it's like saying, what I hear you saying is.
Exactly.
Okay.
The second stage, rephrasing content, involves putting the other person's words into your own words. This demonstrates that you're not just parroting back what they've said, but that you're actively processing and interpreting their message.
So you might say something like, it sounds like you're feeling frustrated because...
The third stage, reflecting feeling, is about trying to sense the emotions behind the other person's words.
Okay.
You might say, you seem to be feeling really angry about this.
Okay.
Or, it sounds like you're feeling hurt and disappointed.
This seems like the most challenging stage.
It can be.
Because it requires us to tune in to our own emotional intelligence. And to be sensitive to the other person's feelings.
It is, but it's also the most powerful stage.
Okay.
Because it allows us to connect with the other person. On a deeper level.
And the fourth stage combines both rephrasing content and reflecting feeling.
Exactly. It's about integrating both the intellectual and emotional aspects of the message.
Gotcha.
You might say something like, it sounds like you're feeling really betrayed because you thought you had a strong agreement.
Okay.
And now you feel like the other person has broken their promise.
That's a great example.
Thanks.
It acknowledges both the factual content of the message
Right.
and the emotional impact that it's having on the person.
Right. And when people feel like they're being truly heard and understood,
Yeah.
they're more likely to open up, to share their perspective,
Right. Yeah.
and to work collaboratively to find solutions.
It creates a foundation of trust and respect.
Precisely. And that brings us to habit 6.
Okay.
Synergize.
Okay.
Covey describes synergy as the highest activity of life.
Okay.
It's about achieving results that are greater than the sum of their parts.
He gives some inspiring examples of synergy in action.
He does.
Like that classroom where the students and the teacher co-create a learning experience.
Yes.
That's far more engaging and effective than anything the teacher could have come up with on his own.
It's a beautiful illustration of what's possible when we embrace the power of collaboration and creativity.
So synergy is not just about teamwork.
Right.
It's about creating something truly innovative and transformative.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that we all have different strengths and weaknesses, and that by working together, we can leverage those differences to create something truly extraordinary.
Covey emphasizes the importance of valuing differences.
He does.
He argues that diversity of thought and perspective
Yeah.
is essential for creating synergistic solutions.
He uses the analogy of a musical ensemble.
Okay.
Each musician brings their unique talents and perspectives to the group. And when they play together in harmony, they create something far more beautiful and moving than any one of them could have created alone.
So it's not about everyone being the same.
It's not.
It's about recognizing and appreciating the unique contributions that each person brings to the table.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And that requires us to move beyond our own limited paradigms.
Right.
And to be open to new ideas and perspectives.
He shares a story about a couple who had very different approaches to problem solving.
Okay.
The wife was more intuitive and emotional, while the husband was more logical and analytical.
Interesting.
Instead of letting those differences create conflict, they learned to value and leverage them.
Good for them.
They realized that their different perspectives actually complemented each other, and they used those differences to make more balanced and informed decisions.
It's a reminder that our differences can be our greatest strengths.
Yes.
When we approach them with a spirit of collaboration and mutual respect.
Absolutely. So we've covered the first 6 habits.
We have.
Which provide a framework for moving from dependence to independence.
Yeah.
And then to interdependence.
Right. And those habits are all interconnected.
Right.
Supporting and reinforcing each other.
Yeah.
They're not just individual practices, but a holistic approach to living a more effective and fulfilling life.
But Covey also emphasizes that these habits need to be grounded.
They do.
In a deeper foundation,
Yes.
principle-centered living.
Exactly. He argues that true effectiveness and happiness flow from aligning our lives with timeless principles, such as fairness, integrity, honesty, and human dignity.
So it's not just about the doing.
It's not.
It's about the being.
Right. It's about developing our character and aligning our actions with our values.
He shares a powerful story about Anwar Sadat,
Yes.
the former president of Egypt,
Yes.
who had been deeply entrenched in a hatred for Israel.
Right. He experienced a profound paradigm shift.
Right.
And he realized that clinging to that hatred was preventing him from achieving his goals.
Yeah, his decision to visit Israel,
Right.
which ultimately led to a peace treaty,
It did.
was a courageous act of principle-centered leadership.
It was a very inspiring story.
It's a reminder that our principles can guide us, even in the most challenging of circumstances.
And those principles are ultimately what sustain us in the long run.
Yeah.
When we're grounded in our values, we have a source of strength and resilience that helps us to navigate the inevitable ups and downs of life.
It seems like this idea of principle-centered living is at the heart of Covey's work.
It is, and it's the foundation for habit 7, sharpen the saw, which is all about renewing ourselves in all 4 dimensions of our being. Physical, spiritual, mental, and social emotional.
So it's about taking care of ourselves so that we can be our best selves
Exactly.
all areas of our lives.
Covey argues that self-renewal is not selfish.
Yeah.
It's essential for our overall effectiveness when we're feeling depleted.
Right.
It's difficult to be proactive, to think win-win, or to seek first to understand.
It's like trying to run a marathon without proper training or nourishment.
Exactly.
You might be able to push through for a while, But eventually, you're going to hit a wall.
Exactly. And that's why habit 7 is so crucial.
Okay.
It's about replenishing our reserves.
Right.
So that we can continue to operate at our peak.
I love how Covey emphasizes that self-renewal.
Yeah.
It's not just about taking a vacation or indulging in a spa day.
He does.
It's about consciously choosing activities that nourish and replenish us.
Absolutely.
In all 4 dimensions of our being.
Right. It's about creating a sustainable lifestyle.
Okay.
That supports our physical, spiritual, mental, and social emotional well-being.
So it's not just about what we do.
It's not.
It's about how we live.
Exactly. And that's what makes Covey's work so powerful and enduring.
Yeah.
It's not just a set of techniques or strategies. It's a philosophy of life that empowers us to create a life of meaning, purpose, and fulfillment.
It's about becoming the best versions of ourselves.
It is.
Not just for our own benefit, but for the benefit of everyone around us. Right.
Precisely. And that brings us back to Covey's emphasis on interdependence.
Okay.
The idea that we're all interconnected.
Right.
And that our individual success is inextricably linked to the success of others.
So it's not about me versus you.
It's not. Exactly. And that's what makes Covey's work so relevant in today's world.
Right.
Where we're facing complex challenges that require collaboration and cooperation on a global scale.
It's a reminder that our individual actions have ripple effects.
They do.
And that by choosing to live a principle-centered life, we can create a positive impact on the world around us.
And as Covey so eloquently puts it, the best way to predict the future is to create it.
That's an inspiring thought.
It is.
To end on.
For sure.
I think that's a great place to wrap up part 2 of our deep dive.
Absolutely. We've covered a lot of ground.
We have.
But we've only just scratched the surface of Covey's profound insights.
In the final part of our deep dive, we'll delve even deeper into the practical application of the 7 habits and explore how you can start incorporating these principles into your own life.
We'll also discuss some of the common challenges that people face when trying to apply these principles.
Right.
And we'll offer some tips and strategies for overcoming those obstacles.
So stay tuned for part 3.
Yes.
Where we'll wrap up our exploration of Stephen Covey's 7 habits.
Okay.
And offer some final thoughts on how to live a more effective and fulfilling life. Welcome back to the Deep Dive.
It's good to be back.
We've been exploring Stephen Covey's The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
We have.
And how these principles can empower you to live a more fulfilling and impactful life.
Absolutely.
We've covered a lot of ground, from the foundational habits of independence to the transformative power of interdependence.
It's a lot to unpack.
But the real magic happens when we start putting these principles into practice.
I agree,
It strikes me that even though Covey wrote this book decades ago,
these principles feel more relevant than ever in today's fast-paced, interconnected world.
I think you're right.
The challenges we face today, from climate change to political polarization, even the rapid pace of technological advancement, all require us to be more proactive, more adaptable, and more collaborative than ever before.
I agree. And those are precisely the qualities that Covey's 7 habits cultivate.
Right. They provide a framework for navigating complexity, for building strong relationships, and for creating a positive impact in the world.
Okay, so let's talk about practical application.
Okay.
How can we start incorporating these principles into our daily lives?
Right. What are some small steps we can take to make a real difference?
One of the most powerful things you can do is to start with just one habit.
Okay.
Don't try to overhaul your entire life overnight.
Right.
Pick one habit that resonates with you.
Okay.
And focus on mastering it. So instead of trying to do everything at once, we should start small and build momentum.
Exactly. It's like learning to play a musical instrument. You wouldn't expect to sit down at a piano for the first time and play a concerto.
Of course not.
You'd start with scales and simple melodies, gradually building your skills and confidence.
It's about creating sustainable habits.
It is.
Not about short-term fixes.
Right. And once you've mastered one habit, you can move on to the next.
Right.
Gradually integrating these principles into your life.
Do you have any suggestions for which habit to start with?
Let me think.
Is there one that's particularly foundational?
Sure.
Or impactful?
I think habit 1, be proactive, is a great place to start.
Okay.
It's about taking ownership of your life and choosing your responses, even in challenging situations.
So it's about recognizing that we have more control than we often realize.
Exactly. We can't always control what happens to us.
Right.
But we can always control how we respond.
And that shift in perspective can be incredibly empowering.
It can.
So how do we cultivate a more proactive mindset?
One simple but powerful practice is to start paying attention to your language.
Okay.
Notice how often you use phrases like,
okay,
I have to, or I can't, or it's not my fault.
Okay.
Those phrases are often indicators of a reactive mindset.
So instead of saying, I have to go to this meeting, I could say, I'm choosing to go to this meeting because I believe it's important.
Exactly. It might seem like a subtle shift.
Yeah.
But it can have a profound impact on your mindset.
Right.
It reminds you that you're in control of your choices.
It's about taking responsibility for our actions.
It is.
Even when things don't go our way.
Right. And it's about focusing on what we can do.
Yeah.
Rather than dwelling on what we can't.
That reminds me of the circle of influence concept.
It does.
Expanding our sphere of control.
Yes.
By focusing on the things we can actually change.
Precisely and often. By focusing on what we can control, we indirectly influence those things that seem outside of our reach.
Can you give an example?
Let's say you're feeling overwhelmed by your workload.
Okay.
Instead of complaining about how much you have to do,
you
could focus on creating a more effective time management system.
Okay.
Delegating tasks when possible, and setting clear boundaries to protect your time.
So instead of being a victim of circumstance, we become active agents.
We do.
In shaping our environment.
Exactly. And that's the essence of being proactive.
What about habit 2? Begin with the end in mind.
Okay.
How can we apply that principle in a practical way?
Covey suggests creating a personal mission statement.
Okay.
A written document that outlines your core values and your long-term goals.
This sounds like a powerful tool for creating clarity and purpose.
It is. It helps you to define what's truly important to you and to make choices that are aligned with your values.
But I think a lot of people struggle with the idea of creating a mission statement.
Yeah.
It can feel overwhelming or even a little cheesy.
It doesn't have to be a grand sweeping document.
Okay.
It can be as simple as a few sentences.
Right.
Or bullet points that capture your essence.
So it's more about the process of reflection and self-discovery.
It is.
Than about the final product.
Right. It's about taking the time to really think about what you want your life to stand for.
Okay. And once you have that clarity,
yeah,
it becomes easier to make decisions that are aligned with your values.
Exactly. Your mission statement becomes a compass that guides you through the inevitable challenges and opportunities that life throws your way.
What about habit 3? Put first things first.
Okay.
How does that tie into this framework of personal effectiveness?
Habit 3 is all about effective time management and prioritization.
Right.
Covey argues that we should focus on quadrant 2 activities.
Okay.
Those tasks that are important but not urgent.
Those are often the things that get neglected, right?
They are. We tend to get caught up in the urgency of the day-to-day, putting out fires, responding to emails, and then we wonder why we never seem to have time for the things that really matter.
Right. It's like that feeling of being busy but not productive.
Precisely. Covey's framework helps us to break free from that cycle of reactivity and create a life that's aligned with our values and goals.
That makes a lot of sense.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into Stephen Covey's 7 habits, remember this. It's not about achieving some kind of perfect state of effectiveness.
Right.
It's about continuous growth and improvement.
Yeah.
It's about embracing the journey.
Right.
And striving to become the best versions of ourselves.
That's a great message to end on.
It is, isn't it?
We hope this deep dive has provided you with valuable insights and practical tools for creating a more fulfilling and impactful life.
Absolutely.
Remember, the journey to effectiveness is ongoing. Embrace the challenge and enjoy the rewards.